I'm sorry. The person you called cannot be reached now.
Family says some of the nicest and some of the meanest things about other family members. So I was thinking that next time we get together, let's make a list that we should sue for defamation.
Don't cheat.
There are
off my
people
list.
I like. I like you guys. You know.
Yeah, thank you very much.
For the moment?
Thank you for the moment. I know. You never know when you're going to end up on Larry Klayman's shit list. I want to welcome everybody to Larry Klayman for Everyone. That's LK, the number 4, the number 1 on Twitter, many other places, on iTunes. We're Larry Klayman for Everyone, Spotify. But of course, our great host site. Our great host site, which is American Greatness. That's amgreatness.com. American Greatness, amazing website. And of course, we're glad to have back on the show. It's managing editor, Ben Boychuk, and who is looking snazzy tonight in a Freedom Unlimited hat. And of course, our amazing ombudsman is here, Louis Eulogy Fine. And
right.
And so
it's an amazing show. There's a lot of amazing in the air.
I'm a New Yorker. I'm a hyperbolic type of person. It's the greatest movie I've ever seen.
How'd you lose your accent?
People ask me that, and I try to explain to them. Accents are a lot like the deeper you get into states. You ever notice the accents are more?
Must have a good ear.
Are more profound. They're more. But I
you speak Hebrew too, don't you?
A little bit, katsat, as I like to say, which means a little in Hebrew.
I speak French and Italian.
That's great, Larry.
Soup du jour.
Do you actually really speak Italian or French?
I'm fluent in French. Yeah, and I can spek Italian. I can read and write French.
So this episode tonight is going to be dedicated because you've had a long career of fighting for the oppressed in our country, for fighting for those that have had their land stolen, their jobs, fired from their jobs. You name it, you've defended it, and you've come across people that it's safe to say you dislike. And I'm fascinated sometimes about your honesty of people you dislike and your openness about
not without
people.
Cause, let's put it that way.
Everybody that you dislike has cause, and I respect that.
And there are people that I like too.
We'll get to that at the end. No, we're going to get to that at the end.
My mother and my sister.
Yes, and yes, we'll get to that at the end. And
Larry's list,
and that's what this episode is. I like that. This episode is Larry's list.
Wife.
So if you're listening, before we get even started, I want you to write down 10 people that you believe Larry dislikes, and Louis and Ben have both done it, and no, we're not going to read it till after. I want to actually play, like, if he says it, we match it.
And what if
no, that's no fun.
Okay, so go for it.
What if I surprise you and I actually like somebody?
I will find that I would not. I find that hard to believe.
So these are 10 people Larry hates.
Yes,
I'm sure some of I'm sure some of the people will overlap.
Okay.
I'll try not to defame anybody.
Okay. And this is going to be 1 minute of why he dislikes him and what they did.
Right. In no particular order.
Yes.
Voices in his head. Whores. 40 of the 45 presidents. His ex-wives.
Wait. 40 of the 45?
Yeah.
That's probably about right.
Right, I thought so. Tonight's guests. The Clintons. Muslims.
I forgot the Clintons.
The Bolsheviks. Self-hating Jews who don't look Jewish, like Bernie Sanders.
No, he does look Jewish. That's the problem. He's a bad example.
Missed anything here?
Okay.
No, we got him. Yeah, no, we've got him. That was 10.
That was really good, by the way. I forgot. How did I forget the Clintons? It's so that's the.
I don't hate all Muslims, by the way. I just hate radical Muslims.
Did you even bring up
Muslims?
Yeah, no, they were on my list.
I don't hate all Muslims.
They followed the Clintons.
Okay, so top of my list is a Muslim, is Louis Farrakhan.
Okay.
Black Muslim.
Al Sharpton.
Okay.
Jesse Jackson. Sean Hannity. All federal judges. CNN. MSNBC. The CIA. The FBI. Roger Stone. Robert Mueller. And Lindsey Graham.
We got Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
That's the short list.
Yeah, that's a short list. Ben, who you got?
I went in a slightly different direction. Gerald Ford, Kaiser Wilhelm II, Donnie Marie Osmond, David Stockman, Jerry Brown, Mike Curb and the Curb Congregation, S.I. Hayakawa, Sandra Day O'Connor, and George F. Kennan. Did I get it right?
I love George.
Some of those people I actually mildly like.
So
Mike Curb and the Curb Congregation, by chance?
Well, Jerry Brown's a leftist, but I think he was an ethical guy.
I actually like Jerry Brown.
Yeah,
I got to interview
He
him a
stood up.
couple of times. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to be on his radio show.
Okay, so we got a like.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But that's not the point of this.
Amazing.
Of all the people we said, Larry, and you're a good listener,
Yeah.
who do you hate? Who do you dislike the most, and why?
Probably Hannity.
Over the Clintons?
No,
Roger Stone?
You're right. Now, some people I view as pathetic and, beyond any rehabilitation.
Yes.
Okay, Roger Stone is one of those. I mean, he's defamed me. He's defamed Corsi. I got lawsuits. He just served the president in many ways. It was stupid the way he lied. Now he's convicted on 7 counts. He's going to be sentenced on February 20th. But I don't hate anybody, okay? I just don't want to be associated with these people. But I would have to say the people that bother me the most are the people that are supposed to be on our side who, are not, who are two-faced or, try to be everything to everyody.
Okay, so let's get to Sean Hannity.
And who lie. And Sean Hannity.
So let's get to Sean Hannity. So
All
you
right,
dislike you have a huge dislike for Sean Hannity, and there's a reason. So explain why.
Well, if people want to get it in depth, they can get my book Whores: Why and How I Came to Fight the Establishment.
And Horse 3 is coming out very soon.
Whores are us. Okay?
Horse.
Right. But actually, the book I'm writing is It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Social Media, okay? Or the Scandal Industry.
Lewis and I have a book with the same title.
Really?
Yeah.
You're just infringing my
No, we came up with it
We don't
first.
wanna go to court with
we
Larry,
had it at
against
Green
Larry.
Blast 3 years ago. That was
Really?
Come on.
And then you threw up.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So go on, Sean
right.
Hannity.
No, it goes way back. Is that when I was fighting the Clintons, Sean Hannity would call me up and tell me things that weren't true. He tried to tell me what to do at Judicial Watch, like he was some, political messiah. Would get the women clients. I represented nearly every woman that was sexually harassed or abused or audited by Bill Clinton, Dolly Kyle Browning, Jennifer Flowers, Juanita Broderick, Paula Jones, you name it. The only one I didn't represent is the one that fled for Paris, the runner-up to Miss America. And, he would tell me, I got them on the show, and then he would bring them on the show without telling me and then depose them, and we had lawsuits that were going on. But it's a long history. I don't need to get into it. I just don't think he's an honest person. I really don't. I think, the guy's basically a slumlord in Atlanta. Taking federal aid to buy property. When he bought all that property, ejecting African Americans from it, claiming that he's some, capitalist, but he fed at the government trough, and buying these, low-income apartments. And anyway, I could go on and on. I just don't like the guy.
Okay, Lewis, who do you have next on your list?
That Larry dislikes?
Yes.
We're going to go in chronological. Well, number 2 I had his ex-wives, but let's be... we had Roger Stone.
Roger Stone.
We already covered Roger Stone.
Right. Let's do the Bolsheviks.
Go for the Bolsheviks, because you know what? It's very timely. Bernie Sanders is an heir to the Bolsheviks.
Well, my grandparents, Izzy and Frida, they thought they were from Russia. They were really from the Ukraine. And they fled. The Bolsheviks were in control. I had a great-grandfather who was abducted by the Cossacks and became great-great-great-grandfather. He was a Bolshoi violinist. So, in some ways, I owe the Bolsheviks a debt of gratitude. I wouldn't be here today if my family hadn't fled Ukraine. They thought it was Russia. But hey, we got here, right? But yes, we've got Bolsheviks in power right now in the Democrat Party.
Well, that actually frightens me, and I will always say this: is Bernie Sanders frightens me more. The winning Iowa, allegedly winning Iowa, he frightens me like no other politician. It's like sort of deja vu all over again. I remember last election, being a Trump supporter and thinking, okay, he could win, but my biggest fear in the whole thing was him winning and not Hillary.
The problem is less Bernie Sanders than the people who support him.
That's right.
Yeah.
In many ways.
I think that's exactly right.
The young people that are confused, they want stuff for free, They don't want to have to work. We were joking, a while back saying there's a bumper sticker that I always liked: vote Democrat, it's easier than working. Vote for Bernie, it's easier than working. And it shows you the degradation of our society that someone like that could have that degree of popularity. I mean, we are much closer to a communist takeover than we were in the days of McCarthy.
Yeah.
I think it's worse than that, if it could be. I think the problem with his supporters is so many of them want revenge. James O'Keefe put out these videos over the past week or so, a couple of weeks now.
From Project Veritas.
For Project Veritas, his followers have dreams of putting people like us in re-education camps.
Yeah.
And they want to fight. And the Antifa guys up in Portland and
New York City this
New York
weekend.
City.
I have a
Yeah.
lawsuit against Antifa, or Antifa, however you pronounce
How do
it.
now? I have a question about that. Who are you suing?
I represent a gay woman
Yeah, but who?
named Kiara Robles, who was pepper sprayed and assaulted when Milo Yiannopoulos was to speak at Berkeley.
Right.
And when they burned everything down and
Right.
everything, and I sued Berkeley. I sued the chancellor of Berkeley.
Okay.
I
Good.
sued the police department.
But
And
nobody
and
directly.
I sued Antifa.
But who is
But-
Antifa?
Well, I did no. Yeah, it's really
Is
not.
it John Doe's or what? I mean.
No, we have names of people in Antifa that assaulted our client.
Okay.
Now the case was assigned. This gets back to your federal judges. Okay, it was assigned to a judge in Oakland who had taught school for 8 years, law school at Berkeley, and a graduate of Berkeley. Very partisan judge who dismissed the case. It's up on appeal to the Ninth Circuit right now. But we're proceeding ahead with that case.
No, but it is. I'm right there with you, Ben. I have never, Bernie Sanders. I mean, I'm actually frightened by the supporters of him, and it's so amazing how everything they accuse the Trump people of
Right.
is them. They want to call. It's so funny how Joe Biden, just for instance, talking about oligarchs. When in a sense he's an oligarch. He is an oligarch,
Sure
right? He, vice president, took money from a country for his kid. Everything they accuse everything.
Well, on the other hand, give Bernie credit because he does say what he thinks. Okay.
Yeah, so did
So
Hitler.
I have friends who actually supported Bernie Sanders and then flipped to Trump.
Yeah.
And Bernie didn't make it in the last election.
Right.
They just want somebody who's telling the truth as they see it. Okay. But unfortunately, Bernie's truth is a communist truth.
Yeah, is a Hitler. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like I said, it's this whole notion of intellectual honesty. Well, so was Hitler, so was Mao, so was Trotsky. All intellectually honest people.
Zelensky. Yeah. Charles Manson.
Charles Manson, yes. Charles Manson was definitely. What were you gonna say, Ben? Or
Well, no. Sanders. I think if he's the nominee, I think he could win. I think he could win.
Win what?
The presidency.
I have a hard time believing that.
I don't see that.
I don't see it either.
Not without a comb.
Yeah,
I think he could.
I don't see. You know what? Listen, Ben Shapiro. You and Ben Shapiro are on board with this one, but I don't see it. When Joe Manchin comes out and says he won't vote for Bernie Sanders, I just don't. The numeric. I don't see the numbers adding up for. I pray you're wrong.
I hope I'm wrong.
First of all, AI is here. A crude form of it. Ben Shapiro is a Nazi robot that was created somewhere in South America by
Mangala?
Well, no, or his or disciples thereof, designed exclusively to foment anti-Semitism. Because I challenge you to sit in a room or listen to or read Ben Shapiro and not walk away with some degree of conversational German and
Well, first of all,
and seeking armaments.
Who can listen to him with that voice? I mean, can you listen to him?
He makes Mark Levin sound like
No, I'm saying so high
Gene
pitched. I mean, he's like
Shepherd
a
and-
little girl. I mean,
well, in
not
many,
that I
in
don't
many
like
ways.
little girls.
in many
You know.
ways.
I would eulogize you if
Ben Shapiro's gonna take me
if
out?
Mayor Kahana were still alive, but since
JDL?
this is right. If the JDL were still alive,
Right.
But no, the JDL would actually agree.
Let me
with
tell you about Shapiro. One reason I don't like him. Years ago, I had lunch with him,
I did too.
And he told me, he says, I'm writing a book for Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch, who obviously
We forgot to put on the list.
You forgot to put that on the list. But so he wrote this book called Corruption Chronicles. It was ghostwritten. Fitton didn't write it. Okay. And it's about the history of Judicial Watch. In the first 48 pages, it cuts me out of the entire history, and Fitton gets all the credit. For $200,000-$300,000, you can write what you have to write. He's just not honest.
So how long after you were at Judicial Watch did Fenton come in? Just to clear the
Why
record.
are we giving this guy free media?
Yeah, well,
That's true.
No, I'll be brief.
Because it's just somebody that he doesn't like.
I hired him as my assistant, and when I left, he took control. I was hoping they would hire someone like Bob Barr as chairman to lead it, but he took control. He's not a lawyer, and as a result, they changed the mission to investigating and prosecuting government corruption and abuse to uncovering, or rather, transparency in government, which is why they do these FOIA cases. And, everybody wins a FOIA case. You're going to get documents in the end. But the documents are good, and I commend my former group, which I founded, which people still think that I'm there, in getting documents. But what do you do when you get the documents? You got to seek justice. The documents don't do anything. They get you on Hannity, but they won't.
See, this is a great point where you're talking about right now, because this goes to, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Larry Klayman for Everyone. We're here with Ben Boychuk, managing editor of American Greatness, our ombudsman Louis Fine, and we're talking about Larry's list. People Larry does not like, and we're to just.
Well, and here's the reason: it's not a personal thing.
No, it's never personal. But just to transition, you would just.
It is with Fitton, but
you brought up a great point about Judicial
long
Watch.
story.
But you brought up a great point with Judicial Watch because it leads to Lindsey Graham and why he drives me up a freaking.
You're allowed to say it.
No, not the course of. It drives me up a freaking wall. My mother listens, and Lindsey Graham for the better part, like we said, of 2 years. Has been saying he's going to, subpoena, he's going to sue. You have all these Republicans, even Joni Ernst saying, if he gets elected, we're going to impeach. No Republican believes that Joni Ernst is telling the truth. No, because this is not something Republicans do.
Right.
It's something Trump would do, but it's not something that...
No, it's not even something Trump would do. He has tremendous power in his hands, and he hasn't used it.
To do what?
To order the Justice Department to investigate people. He
or
is
declassify documents.
Yeah, he is the head of the Justice
Department. That's the biggest
Department.
thing, is the declassification of
But
documents that I wish he would do.
Here's the catch as to why you say I dislike people. I dislike people who don't tell the truth. That's in my book, Horse. Ever since I was a kid. It's a little,
Oh, I don't think most whores are honest.
No, actually, it was Mark Twain that said at least they give you something of value.
True.
And as opposed to lawyers. It was also Ronald Reagan who said that the first oldest profession gives the second oldest profession a bad name, meaning politicians.
No, the reason
because there's some integrity to whores. There's no integrity to politicians.
It's important to talk about this because one of the things I love about AM Greatness, and one of the things I love about reading your articles constantly on Freedom Watch, which I get quite a few of, but I love them,
WND.com.
is because there is a real intellectual honesty, because so many conservatives or Trumpicans are sitting at home and just want to pull their hair out saying, when are you going to fight back? Like, when is the party going to just say enough?
Well, it's not just that, okay? So what I take issue with, and you hit the nail on the head with Lindsey Graham, are people that have turned this country into a giant reality series, okay? And that's what we saw with this impeachment trial. I mean, they're all decked out in their $5,000 suits, their pins, their cufflinks. Let me give you a quick, and they're not in it for real. It's for show and not for dough. And the American people are being deceived. And the people that watch these shows, like Hannity's show and others, they tune in every night, they get their popcorn, they get their beer, the Diet Coke, they digest this thing. And I say, get up off the couch, put the popcorn down, and join our Justice League at Freedom Watch. Do something. Fight for this country.
I'm the Black Lightning of the Justice League.
Right.
Who are you?
I'm Jewish Thunder.
Well, at least you're not Wonder Woman.
And Ben, what are you?
The Flash. He's the Flash.
No, but it's just one of those things, and I think it just drives a lot of people crazy. And that, if you had to say to me, what do you dislike? That is my biggest dislike.
The phoniness.
It is the constant. It's like, how many times can you have Sarah Carter, John Solomon, Greg Jarrett all promising that tomorrow the report's going to come out, and the report never comes out, and it is so frustrating.
And they know better, but they have to do that to boost the ratings, the advertising dollars.
What's the
Kennedy
female-
now has a 4 million viewer audience nearly every night.
Who's the great writer, and it's escaping my mind, the female writer for American Greatness?
Julie Kelly?
Yeah, she wrote a great piece about this, and it was the quagmire that Republicans had. It wasn't, I'm sort of just paraphrasing right now, about whether to call witnesses or not to call witnesses, and this is why so many people were like, you should call, it was like, if you call witnesses, worst case scenario, you get John Bolton. But but on the other hand, you could get Schiff up there. You could get, and it actually would have been more productive. We know John Bolton's book's coming out.
Right.
We know the story of whatever Yosemite Sam is going to tell.
Yeah, I would have had witnesses. I mean, let her
yeah.
rip. Let her rip.
It was
Let
a
it
great
all
piece.
hang
It was a
out.
great piece you wrote about that, because it was hard. I didn't. Part of you just wants this to end. Let's just end. But even on Friday, when it could have ended, no, it goes to Wednesday.
Right. Because they had to go
right.
home.
And at that point,
Well, isn't it State of the Union Tuesday?
tomorrow? Yeah, it was, or it was the other day. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was the other day. It was weeks ago, and
It was tremendous.
And it was tremendous. It was the best State of the Union ever. And that's the most frustrating thing is they decide, well, we're just going to cut it off this weekend, and or this past weekend, and go an extra 5 days. You know what? At that point, Mitch McConnell sort of said, we're calling witnesses. What can you want witnesses? Let's call witnesses. And how many of us would have said, you know what? Let's do it. Let's go to the mats.
Yeah, they'll never go to the mats because they're scared of the truth. All of them are scared of the truth. And Trump has made a mistake many times, and so has Lindsey Graham and the others. They could have ended this thing with the Democrats years ago. You just investigate them. That's all. It's legitimate. He is the head of the Justice Department. Use your authority.
Yeah. And Lindsey Graham, Lord knows, has a lot of subpoena power.
Exactly.
And it's a maddening thing, but she's an amazing writer, by the way.
Oh yeah, we love her. She's great.
Say her name one more time.
Julie Kelly.
She's a fantastic writer. Yeah. And but anyways, going on, that's my biggest thing. So let's go.
By the way,
yeah,
commercial time. Okay.
Yeah.
See these hats that we're wearing? Freedom Unlimited. That's a DBA of Freedom Watch. You notice the FU. Okay?
Yes.
If you want to order one, go to freedomwatchusa.org. It'll help support our cause. They're going like hotcakes.
And
they look great.
Yeah, and we have T-shirts. We have,
and just so you know, Louis was
baby
off.
clothes.
No, I have one, and I'm bringing it home. It's green.
Yes,
Right.
You
Well, that's
chose-
because you're Irish.
Right.
And for the record, I didn't want white, but when Larry had on white, I said you look
Like an albino.
like an albino. But let's get
Thank
back.
you, by the way, for helping him cross the street before we started.
You
this
got more.
show tonight.
You got more complexion than I do.
Anyways, let's get back to it. People, Larry dislikes for a reason.
For a reason.
Federal court judges.
Well,
You hate the federal court judges. I mean, you don't just dislike them. Come on, Larry.
Well, you're right, because I believe in the legal system. I believe, that we need to have a rule of law, respect our Constitution, but I believe in intellectual honesty. And federal judges, generally speaking, there are some good ones, not that many, but they're chosen on the basis of political patronage, contributions from public interest, from special interest groups, and others. We don't get the best and the brightest. What we get, by and large, are political hacks on the bench, and we've seen it. You can guess with almost exact certainty how a judge is going to rule based upon which president, with which political ideology appointed him or her. And they, in principle, judges are our most important public servants because they're there to protect us from the tyranny of the other two branches of government and from ourselves. But instead, what they're doing is scratching their own back for advancement or to be part of the Washington Club or the club in any state capital or any city around this country. And that's why my New Year's resolution is to file more cases in state court where judges at least are accountable to the people. Either they're voted in or they can be voted out. Now, that's not a perfect system either. But I can tell you in my native state of Florida, the state court judges are worlds above any federal court judge that I know of in this country at this time.
And Louis, it's a good thing that you and I are expats that live in New Zealand where we're shooting this show tonight.
Right.
Larry claiming for everyone, so we don't have to really worry.
Let's hope you don't get
Can I say
into
something as a hostage?
federal
Yes.
court.
That I was coerced into this show. The words that I am saying now constitute a plea, not only to the American people, but to the court that will try me, the judge who may sentence me. I ask for mercy and forgiveness,
Throw
and the
yourself on the
understanding
mercy of the court.
that I'm not here of my own volition.
And you speak for both of us, right?
Right, of
Yes.
course.
And Louis, I'll defend you.
No, thank you.
This guilty plea that the jury has arrived at I can respect the process while disagreeing with the result, as I do in this case.
Yes,
just-
you and I stand together,
Right,
and or in our case,
I was thinking of Hilary as the Bill Kunstler of the right. Don't you see that?
There's
though?
some
that's
truth to
actually a
that.
great
I
point.
know. I
And
know.
you know what?
You know, I'm friends with
Ron Kuber.
Ralph Nader. I patterned Freedom Watch
I thought he was going to say that too.
after Public Citizen
Right.
at the time.
And by the way,
I'm-
just so
I'm a-
people know, because Kunstler's an old name, Attica. Look it up. That's who William Kunstler
You know,
is.
you know what I was watching on the weekend about, speaking of Kunstler? You'll know this because you're from New York. Larry Davis. The other Larry. Remember Larry Davis?
No, I
from
don't.
Curb Your Enthusiasm?
No, that's Larry David.
Oh,
Who's Larry Davis?
You should
Yeah.
be ashamed of yourself.
Well, I'm always
Who is
ashamed of
Larry
myself.
The late Larry Davis is the only person in American history, definitely New York State history, but maybe even American history, who was tried for the attempted murder of at least 4 New York City police officers. So 4 police officers. And he was acquitted. And he alleged in turn that he opened fire in defense against the cops who were there to kill him because he had been dealing drugs and decided to stop.
Right.
And those cops, he alleged, were on the take. And
What year is this?
86.
I was 10 in my defense.
But he
I remember
was
the Challenger.
Anyway, he was acquitted. He was tried, I think, 3 or 4 times. They got him on a weapons charge. But his 2 of his attorneys are now deceased, Kunstler and the woman who I discovered was later tried herself by the government and for collaborating with her client Yamzi Roos, the blind sheep.
Yeah.
Well, who was her? Something Stewart. Something
Wasn't
Stewart.
Ramsey Youssef who Kunstler got off for killing
No, that's
Martha Stewart.
No,
Mayor
no, no,
Gahan?
no. That you're thinking of
Lemrick Nelson?
Lemrick Nelson is the one who killed the Australian.
The Hasidic guy in
Right,
Brooklyn that
right.
started the Crown Heights riots that Al Sharpton helped start.
Right. Who was then later
Al Sharpton's number
convicted. He was
one
then
on mine,
later
yeah.
convicted. Lemrick Nelson was later convicted on federal civil.
I love
rights.
this linear thinking.
But
Well,
Stewart was her last
and it all
name,
comes back
and
to
she
Roger Stone.
represented the blind sheik, and she ended up dying. She was released on compassionate. She got a compassionate release and died of breast cancer. But the point is, Larry Davis, who was represented by
William
Kunstler and Ron Kuby,
Yeah.
and the Stewart lady.
I love that all came out that Larry.
The other Larry.
reminds you of William Kunstler. But I
Well,
like
you know
I
what?
like this Larry.
I was friends with Ramsey Clark. Okay, he was Attorney General under Lyndon Johnson. Now Ramsey, ideologically is totally different than I am, but there is a certain affinity between left and right in that we both have a distrust of government. Okay, and I got to know Ramsey. I was having issues with a judge called Denny Chin, and I actually had him represent me, and the judges of the Second Circuit hated him even more than they hated me because he stood up to them.
I find that hard to
You know,
believe.
he believed in. It's a long story. We'll do another show on it, but if someone really believes in what they're saying and what they're doing, I can respect them.
You see, I have a hard time with that sometimes because I don't respect Bernie Sanders. Getting back to Bernie Sanders, I don't respect Al Sharpton.
Well, let
Do
me tell you
these people
something.
really believe
MSNBC and CNN is as abhorrent as they are, and as far left and as dishonest as they are. At least it's clear what they stand for. Fox News is now trying to stand for everything.
Can you find out the Stewart woman? I want to say Lynn Stewart.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
right.
Okay, let's get back to what about you, Ben? I want to know 2 people on your list.
Oh, I gotta pick
Not
this-
from Larry, from yourself.
Oh, from myself.
Yeah,
who do you dislike the most?
Oh gosh.
I mean, Lewis has got a long list.
Don't worry, Ben. I'll defend you too. Actual malice. They have to prove it.
I mean, thinking in terms of media. Since I don't watch a lot of TV, I'm not going to slam anybody on CNN or Fox or whatever. But in terms of columnists, I cannot bear to read. He's a glutton for punishment. He reads Peggy Noonan every week,
Oh, my
and he
God.
sends me links, and I was like, "Why do you do this to yourself?"
Because I'm a masochist.
Yeah, because you're a
Who
master.
supposedly wrote part of one speech, and
Yeah.
she's written that for
Yeah.
the better part of 30 years.
David Brooks, I cannot
Yeah.
abide at all. Ostensibly conservative, not really. writer, longtime writer for the New York Times.
Like that Washington Post lady. I don't even want to say her name.
Jennifer Rubin.
You had to say her name.
She's a disgusting human being.
Yeah, agreed. Go on.
Yeah, who's I don't know. Yeah, but by the way, I know that I'm getting off track slightly, but these are all people who are ostensibly professional journalists who seem to live their lives on Twitter.
Yeah.
I just don't know how they get anything.
Dana
done.
Milbank, another one.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's another good.
And the funny thing is, these people. I don't know about Jennifer Rubin. I never really followed her, but Dana Milbank was never the way he is today. During the Clinton years. He just going off the deep end. He wanted to get his little show and MSNBC or get on there. These people just sell out. I'll tell you another one. Jake Tapper. He was a nice guy, but he sold out. Mm-hmm. In many ways. I remember Jake, if I may elaborate. I did an event for Judicial Watch at the convention in Philadelphia.
Where his hometown, yeah.
Yeah.
And Larry's hometown.
Yeah, and Jake came up to me. We had a little fundraiser for Judicial Watch, and we had everything cordoned off. And he said, "Can I come in and cover your event?" He was with Slate or Salon Magazine or something. I said,
Salon.
I said, "You're not coming in, Jake." I felt bad about it. And he said, "Larry, I'm not like the rest of them." And for a while, he wasn't. Mm-hmm. But they just all went, excuse the French, ape shit. Okay, when Trump was elected, and they sold out to.
They did that way before.
To Jeff Zucker and everybody else.
Right. They were always this was always this isn't my. I heard somebody say this. It's basically Trump took people that were wearing clothing and crazy and basically just they're naked. They ran out of their house naked. They did not put any clothing on, and they're showing us exactly who they are and who they've always been.
Yeah, that's right.
This notion that they've gone crazy. Trump just showed you who they really were.
No, that's right. That's why I love. That's really why I love 2016 so much, was because of the clarity that delivered. Which brings me to my second person.
Yes.
Who will have to represent, I think, the phenomenon of Never Trump, which is Bill Kristol.
Oh,
Bill Kristol. Now we have a sort of
we'll all agree on this one.
Yeah, we have a sort of unwritten policy at American Greatness that we have decided over time that we're just going to ignore the Never Trump people. So we don't write very much about the Bulwark, which is circling the drain. We don't really write too much anymore about David French, who Julie Kelly used to love going after David French, and we don't feel like
the presidents.
Yeah, we don't feel like they deserve the attention. Yeah. But Kristol.
No, Kristol's the worst.
Is despicable.
No,
yeah.
It's
he's a total whore.
And it's really funny because I know somebody that's very close with him, and he's another one of these guys. We were watching the Super Bowl the other night, and we were
2 or 3 weeks ago.
2 or 3 weeks ago,
yeah.
And Joe Buck, Joe Buck is announcing the game, and I was saying, and I always say this is one of my least favorite announcers. I cannot stand Joe Buck and Troy Aikman announcing a game. I would rather turn them off and listen to the radio, which I prefer. But Joe Buck is one of those people that has the job because his father was, Jack Buck. There is no Joe Buck without Jack Buck, and there is no, Bill Kristol without his father. Irving, right?
Irving,
yeah, Irving Kristol, and that the him coming out and saying we are all Democrats now.
Right.
And this is my biggest resentment, and I got to be honest, my biggest resentment against these people is we listened to them for years.
That's right.
We listened to these neocons, we listened to these conservatives, and we stood by them sometimes, and we said, okay, you're going the right way. And the second we changed course and said, this is our guy, they said, well, you're on your own.
Well, there's a phenomenon that they have in common. Is that most of these people wanted to be part of the Trump train, but they did not become part of the Trump train. They were excluded. So-called Judge Napolitano
wanted to be a Supreme Court
third
judge. Yeah.
Great judge from New Jersey, who has gone completely crazy, hates Trump, and just bashing him. And there are a number of other people Kellyanne Conway's husband, who didn't get the job he wanted, is as Solicitor General, George Conway.
This is actually
crazy.
But this is actually where I'll give you credit. You sued the Clintons over 30 times, right?
More than that.
More than 1,000 times, let's say.
Well, them or their administration probably over 100 times.
But you were always an equal opportunity. This is who I've always thought that
I
the
sued
Bill
Bush.
Kristol,
I sued Cheney.
the Bill Kristols, the George Wills of the world have made 30 years or 40 years of a career after going after the Clintons. And I always believed that Trump winning, it killed their careers because there was no more. Trump took down the people they were supposedly going after for 35 or 40 years. Trump took them all out in one. He took out the Bushes, the Clintons. He took out everybody in one felt swoop.
I used to love George Will.
For the
but
time
when
being.
I'll tell you something. When
For the time being.
When his oldest son stopped writing the columns, stopped ghosting them for George Will, you could tell. You could tell there was a decline.
I can't tell if you're being serious or not.
The haters will respond to that. Ben knows what I'm talking about.
Please elaborate.
what
'Cause
we-
George Will's oldest son has an extra chromosome. So for the people listening and watching, I have no tangible
and George Wells
assets.
is lactose.
I live in a cave, and I
both of us.
Yes, and this is Skype. This is a virtual show.
We don't even exist.
We're not even in the same room right
Your
now.
name isn't even Louis Fine. And
It's the Max Headroom version of politics.
But that was my biggest issue. That is my biggest issue with these people. It's not that there is nothing intellectually honest about Bill Kristol's of the world or any of these people. They convinced the Republican Party to go down this path of nation building, of all these things, of all these institutes.
Well, let's stop for a moment and say they, because I know there are people that say the neocons, but the people in power.
Yes, the people in power.
And Christopher Hitchens used.
there are a
I'll
lot
never
of
forget
people-
when he said this. He said, I've been in Washington 20-something years, and I tell people all the time, I'm paraphrasing, that whenever you let your guard down, it's when the Goyim worm their way in. He said, what kind of a name is Rumsfeld or Cheney?
Right, I know in the beginning,
or
the
Bush?
term neocon in the beginning was a trope for anti-Semitism.
It can be.
It was
just
an
like the word Zionist can
It was
be.
an anti-Semitic trope that some.
Not all the time.
And then
Why?
it be-
Because Crystal
Well,
embodied that?
I would say
Well, no,
that
I want to hear from the
I don't
non-Jew
know
in the
what
group.
neoconservatism
I want to actually
anymore.
hear from Ben, who's the non-Jew in the group, why that term was considered.
well, it was, but it would also, I was working at a newspaper in the mid 2000s, right around when, in the course of the surge. What happened? I mean, what eventually happened with neocon is what has kind of happened lately with Tea Party or alt-right. It became a kind of a catch-all term of abuse.
Yeah.
We would get these letters to the editor, neocon, this and that. As people don't. At some point, the term, much like racist, I think it kind of lost all of its punch.
But it went full circle because
Yeah.
it started as a pejorative by Michael Harrington, who was a
Oh,
socialist.
that's right.
He coined the word neoconservative.
See, this is why people have to tune into LK for everyone, Larry Klayman for everyone.
We're
because
educating.
I got to tell
It's
you,
like Obamacare.
I'm-
Obamacare started as a pejorative on the right about the alternative.
All
the
this-
Affordable Care Act.
All this-
right,
yeah.
so called, and liberals and Democrats co-opted it and they took possession of it and they don't have a problem calling it Obamacare. So yeah, the term neoconservative or neoconservatism was coined as an epithet by a socialist against people who were, for the most part, conservative on foreign policy or more anti-communist than their so-called fellow travelers within the Democratic Party. But on the social programs and social issues at the time, for the most part, they were more in agreement than they were disagreement.
And what I love about the show is the way we got there, and that's a great lesson, and I appreciate that, is from Larry's list.
Right.
of
The list is
of-
light.
Larry's list.
Larry's list. The people.
That's like Emily's list, right?
Or yeah,
Conservative version.
Right. We're
Yes.
going to abort these
Larry's
lists
list.
when the show ends.
Larry's enemies list.
And
Richard
and
Nixon.
my we forgot one name. My anonymous producer girlfriend brought up a name, which is Aaron Sorkin.
Well, Aaron Sorkin created this character after me, Harry
Yeah.
Claypool of Freedom Watch. That's where I get the name Freedom Watch, and you can see that on our website at freedomwatchusa.org. I was in 3 episodes, and frankly, it was flattering that I made my way into, the general TV media, but they poked fun at me.
So do you like him?
I
or
don't
not?
find that.
Sorkin, well, I think he's extremely talented, but yeah, he's a raving leftist, but he's talented. I like Oliver Stone. I think he's one of the great directors of all time.
Speaking of unintentional effects, Wall Street.
Yeah, no, it's one of the
film that was
I actually
made-
said that to him on the phone when he brought up Oliver Stone.
Great film that was made with the intent of condemning Wall Street, condemning insider trading, condemning the so-called decade of greed under Ronald Reagan. Yeah. And I'll never forget it when I was a kid at the time, and NBC had a news show that preceded the Today Show. So this was 6-something in the morning, and they had a member of the show on talking about the film, and the host said, "Well, what's your impression? Do you think this will dissuade people from pursuing a career in investment banking or going to work on Wall Street?" And the person said, "I wanted to join the firm after I watched the."
And this is like, and I actually want to say this is going to make a great topic for next time, but it's movies and television shows that were created to mock us, but ended up people loving us.
I don't think Carol O'Connor recognized
All in the Family.
The appeal of Archie Bunker.
He was meant to be the star.
Norman Lear,
Michael J. Fox, and Gary David Goldberg absolutely hates that Michael J. Fox was so loved. He thought he was creating a Reagan.
A funny story about Michael J. Fox and Ronald Reagan, because he said he had met Reagan at the White House, and this had coincided or came right after he had done Back to the Future. So he was at the peak of his career, and Reagan, as Fox tells the story, said, you're on this hit television show, you're in this hit movie, you're everywhere. And Fox said, "I feel like I'm the second busiest man in the room." And Reagan leaned in and looked at Fox and said, "Who's the first?"
That's a great story. And that's Gary gave, and I really do believe it's a funny thing about how many of these characters, whether it was Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men, done by Meathead, to portray this, and every conservative that's watching the movie is saying he's right.
One more story about Reagan owning someone.
Yeah.
So Ted Kennedy comes to the White House. He has an appointment with the president, and he's representing the shoemakers in Lowell, Massachusetts, where there was at one point a huge shoe manufacturing industry. It was a staple industry of that part of the state. And they have 45 minutes because they're lobbying for tariffs, I believe, on imports, on shoes imported.
Kind of work that I used to do.
And Kennedy introduces everyone, and Reagan looks at Kennedy's shoes and remarks how good they look. And Kennedy says, "Well, the point being, they were made here in America, in Lowell." And Reagan then talks about his father, who was a shoe salesman, and the glory of industry. And the next thing you know, the door opens into the Oval Office, and it's the president's executive assistant saying, "Mr. President, your 10 o'clock is here." And it wasn't until Kennedy and the group walked out that Kennedy realized he just owned me. He just used the 45 minutes to tell me a story about selling shoes. He's not going to support the tariffs.
To get on the issue of shoes,
yes.
I remember one time walking out of the press club, and Al Gore was with me. We came into the elevator, and his shoes were so dirty and unkempt. I mean, what's your impression when you find people wearing shoes that aren't polished and unkempt?
And that's for a whole other episode. I agree with you, by the way, on that.
That was the beginning of Gore's problems.
The shoes.
And you notice Gore rhymes with whore.
Right.
And I want to thank everybody for listening.
I did like Leslie Gore.
I want to thank everybody
It's
for
your
listening.
party.
God, they never let me disclose. I want to thank everybody that's listening, that tuned in.
Tenafly,
for
New
LK,
Jersey. That's where she was
for
from.
everyone that's LK, the number 4, EVERY, the number 1. That's where we're at Twitter. We're also at AM Greatness. Ben, why don't you tell us very quickly about AM Greatness?
AM Greatness, amgreatness.com, American Greatness. We've been around since 2016. We're going to have a great year this year with the election, expanding coverage all the time. And you can find us on Twitter at the AM Greatness on Twitter. And then you can find me on Twitter at Ben Boychuk.
I want to thank our anonymous
site.
producer. It is a fantastic site. Our great producer, our anonymous producer. Also, Lewis and I will probably be on trial soon, and Larry will not be defending us after the show.
Larry!
Well, that's okay. I'll come visit you.
You'll come visit us, and also Larry, tell us a little bit quickly about Freedom Watch.
Well, Freedom Watch you can find at freedomwatchusa.org. And as I was saying before, Freedom Watch does today what I used to do at Judicial Watch, not just documents, hard-hitting cases, citizens' grand juries. We do break through. We do find good judges, from time to time, and I've been following a lot of cases in my native state of Florida where cases move forward and we can get justice.
And that's LK for everyone. Larry Klayman, thank you. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Lewis. And thank you, everybody, for listening to LK for everyone. Now I'm adding to the list.
Hey, you know who's really going to suffer if Rush dies? Hannity, because he steals everything from Rush.